Yes, and ready to go. Take off my words. So let me know when I can. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday with the Doctor. We have with us tonight Katrine Ramsey, who's from the Russell Sage. There's an echo. Russell Sage Colleges, the Doctor of Physical Therapy program, who's going to speak to us about a very important topic, sleep. We have our Tuesday with the Doctor program almost every month on the fourth Tuesday. And so check our calendar at joyoftroy.org/calendar to find out when we're having a program and what's going on. So without further ado, I'm going to let Dr. Ramsey talk about herself, her work, and sleep.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and thank you for tuning in, those of you out there in virtual land. I usually have an entourage of second-year students with me, but they are swamped this semester. So they'll be back in the fall to help me, but I'm flying solo tonight. So it might be a little bit smoother or it might be a little bit more confusing. I haven't decided yet. So we're going to talk about sleep. I got very interested in this topic because I have a huge background in health promotion and wellness. And as a physical therapist, we know a lot about physical activity and exercise, how beneficial it is for you. And we know a lot about how not being sedentary is beneficial for you, but there's starting to become a lot of research about how important sleep is. And so this talk is going to be background information about what good sleep is, what bad sleep is, how it affects your body and your mind and your spirit. And then we're going to talk about what you can do to maybe have better sleep habits. So first slide is about sleep deprivation. So the National Institute of Health defines sleep deprivation is not getting enough restorative sleep. So that can come from a variety of problems. It could be from disrupted sleep in the middle of the night. It could come from not going to bed on time or having to get up too early for jobs. So there's many things that impact the amount of sleep that you get. And so the National Sleep Foundation, which I have at the end of this presentation as a great resource if you're interested in more information, they recommend that we get 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. So how many people here get 7 to 9 hours sleep per night? Yeah, that's about, for the audience here, that's about what the US CDC reports, which is the Center for Disease Control. So more than 1/3 Americans, and in this group it's bigger than that, report they don't get enough rest or sleep activity daily. And they've now called sleep deprivation as a public health epidemic. So it's a big problem for a lot of reasons. And we kind of, I think in the past, just took it for granted, like, yeah, I slept well, or I didn't sleep well, or, you know, I have a busy life, I have work to do. But now we're starting to look at it through the lens of scientists, and we're starting to see exactly how it's linked to a lot of health problems. And so we're going to talk about those tonight. So the next slide is 35% of Americans report sleeping less than 7 hours a night. That's usually me, and college students sleep even less than the Gen Pops. And so those are usually my charges that I worry about, which is why we got started on this research project this year. So 43% of college students report that they sleep less than 7 hours per night. Another statistic that's kind of interesting about college students, and I put this little picture of the slide because we have a Labrador at our house that sometimes likes to hop up in the middle of the night and say hello. Sleep disruption in college students is much more astronomical than in the average population. So, you know, I'm 64, and when I think about sleep disruption, for me, sleep disruption is probably I have to get up to go to the bathroom because I drank too much food before I went to bed, right? Or sleep disruption is I'm a very light sleeper, there's a noise in the house that wakes me up. But college students wake up 12, 13, 14, 15 times a night, which is also a problem for getting into a really good sleep rhythm. So when we talk about the phases of sleep, there's 5 phases. And so the first phase is considered you're still awake, right? And the orange part of the slide, the non-REM sleep, REM is rapid eye movement. Non-REM sleep has several stages as you're falling into a deeper sleep, and it lasts about 90 minutes. So stage 1 is light sleep, And then stage 2, your eye movement starts to slow down and the brain waves slow down. And then you end up into stage 3, which is deep sleep. And after that comes REM sleep, which is where all the dreams occur. And so progressively deeper sleep happens through these stages. And this is what the normal sleep pattern should look like. So if you're not dreaming, perhaps maybe you're not getting into a deep enough sleep level, or if you're dreaming at different times, perhaps your biorhythm is messed up. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Normal circadian rhythm. Do you know anything or heard anything about circadian rhythm? That's just the way the human body is designed. It's a 24-hour sleep-wake cycle. It's a natural rhythm, and it basically regulates physiology and behavior, and it keeps track of sleep, wakefulness, body temperature, hormone release. So it's basically your biorhythm. Sometimes when you switch time zones, if you've traveled out of the area, you feel like your biorhythm's off. Or if you have a shift work where you have to work at night or some other time than you're used to, that will like physically and also emotionally, psychologically change your internal system setting. And so it's mainly controlled by light, right? Natural light and dark. And it can be influenced by medication use. So there are medications that keep people up. Usually steroid medication is a problem for keeping people up. And it also can be impacted by the stress level. So some of us, me in particular, when I have a lot of stress or incomplete assignments, will wake up in the middle of the night, wide awake at the wrong time, usually 2, usually 4. Oh my goodness, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I didn't do this. When am I gonna do it? Should I get out of bed? Should I go back to sleep? All those things go through my head. Body temperature. I happen to like a cooler bedroom, and there is research that shows the human body likes it. Oh, Angel's shaking her head. She's like, no, absolutely not. But temperature usually decreases with sleep in the human body, and then food intake will influence it, and physical activity level, definitely. All these things play a part of normal circadian rhythm. What's the biggest part of the regulation of circadian rhythm is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, otherwise known as the SCN. So it's a part of your brain near the hypothalamus. And what happens is the photoreceptors in your eyes are transmit information like, oh, it's getting dark. It's going to be nighttime. And so they send that information to this part of your brain. And then the SCN sends out signals that your body should release melatonin. And melatonin is a naturally occurring hormone that signals the rest of your body, all the cells, to go to sleep. And some of us probably have tried melatonin supplements. Have you tried? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, of course, all of us who aren't sleeping are trying melatonin. I myself have some melatonin in my cabinet in the kitchen. But if you take much melatonin, you can have some side effects from melatonin, which would include headaches, dizziness, daytime drowsiness, which sounds, that's way too much melatonin, because normally it's about a 5-hour duration melatonin when you take it over the counter. You can have vivid dreams and you can have urinary incontinence, which is a problem when you're taking it to try to go to sleep. Those are two, opposite problems, having to wake up to go to the bathroom and taking melatonin to go to sleep. And it also can give you some mood swings. So there are side effects. And if you, the problem with some of the supplements in this country is that it's not well regulated. The industry is not well regulated. So you have to be careful what the ingredients are on the supplements and what the dosages are on the supplements. Are you moving my slides? Are you, Rachel? Are you changing my slides?
I am.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And now my computer's not letting me change my slides. All right. So when we started to look into sleep, the biggest thing that we found is that technology is terrible for sleep. Because of the blue light that's emitted. And we're talking TVs, and we're talking computers, and we're talking cell phones. So this picture of this young lady who's looking at her cell phone in bed looks like my husband often. right before bed, cell phone right 2 inches from his face, right? But they cause disruptions in your circadian rhythm and in that super SCN's ability to transmit information. So the human body gets confused, right? And most of us at the end of the day, at the end of a long day, a work day, running around, all we want to do is sit on the couch and probably watch a nice TV show. Or check our email, check our Facebook, check what our friends are doing, or check our phone for text messages, but that's absolutely the worst thing to do for sleep. So, especially if you do it at night, that's the worst. So during the day is kind of fine, but during at night is not great. And we found some really interesting studies about how much is too much, right? So I myself, I have a love-hate relationship with my cell phone. It's nice to be connected, but it's also sometimes very intrusive to, trying to separate, go out into nature. And we know light exposure, natural light exposure is important for health and for sleep rhythms. So what happens when you get a good night's sleep? These are all the good things that happen. First of all, your heart rate and your blood pressure decrease, and so your heart gets a nice rest if you're having a good night's sleep. And in terms of breathing, your breathing rate starts to even out. So it's kind of uneven for most people as they're going through those initial stages of sleep. But as they get into deep sleep, then the lungs get a rest and the respiratory system gets a little bit of a rest. In terms of the urinary system, the kidneys have less workload and the kidneys have to do less excretion of potassium and sodium and chloride. And they have a decreased volume of output. So the kidneys get a little rest. So I call sleep cleanup on all three, right? Restorative sleep is super important for healing. Restorative sleep is an opportunity for your body to do microcellular repair and to give things that have been stressed during the day an opportunity to reset, recalibrate, and heal themselves essentially. So in terms of neurological function, brain activity in REM sleep with the dreams is increased, but non-REM, it gets a little bit of a rest. And then in terms of endocrine function, we get growth hormone, which is that cleanup that helps microcellular change and recovery. And then we have this lymphatic system, which is a system that helps clear metabolic waste, and that gets boosted during a good night's sleep. Stop me if you have any questions at any time or any comments and I'm free to stop. My students say I never stop, but I'm happy to stop and answer any questions you might have. So negative body system changes with sleep deficiency. Okay, here we go. If you don't get enough sleep, you have a higher risk for heart disease, particularly stroke and atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is when you get plaque in your arteries, usually from cholesterol and fat deposits. And so what's not enough sleep or what gave people these symptoms? People who are getting less than 6 hours a night are 4 times more likely to have a stroke, less than 6 hours a night. So these are some pretty adverse health situations. Cardiovascular system is a really important system, and not getting enough sleep, we now know that it's going to, one, make you at risk for heart disease, and two, it's going to give you a lot more stress hormone production. I love this parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. The sympathetic nervous system run away from dinosaurs. So cortisol is part of the sympathetic system. And so in terms of sleep and overall health, cortisol has been linked to inflammatory processes and all other kinds of disease processes, even mortality. So cardiovascular system, when you don't get sleep, is one that's very, very challenged. And part of the cardiovascular system is the C-reactive protein, which is, again, an inflammatory response. So we know for a fact from a lot of great scientific studies that not sleeping is not good for your heart. In terms of respiratory system, if you don't get enough sleep, your muscles of inspiration, diaphragm, and other intercostal muscles have poor endurance, right? So not getting enough sleep might affect your ability to bring oxygen into your lungs. So if you get short of breath walking up a flight of stairs, check in with yourself. How was my sleep the night before? And a lot of these studies are not long-term or longitudinal studies. Some of these studies are, deprive somebody's sleep by 2 hours and see what happens with the human body, or deprive somebody's sleep just one night and see what happens with the human body. Some of these studies are very shorter term studies. Some are longer term, but some are short. In terms of the urinary system, you have an increased risk for development of chronic kidney disease if you're not getting good sleep, and kidney function declines, which is a problem. And you can also have some electrolyte problems with your salts and minerals if you're not getting enough sleep. So we already got cardiovascular, we got respiratory, we've got urinary, and it goes on. Neurological system. That running away from dinosaurs, the sympathetic nervous system negatively impacts your memory and your ability to learn. So that's pretty significant in terms of neurological system, and increases that sympathetic nervous system where you're always somewhat in a panic, you're always having stress. You know, we a long time ago had stress, but then no stress. But now we're all day long stress, which is not a healthy way to live. Endocrine system. Diabetes is a huge problem in this country, and endocrine system also likes sleep, right? If you don't get enough sleep in the endocrine system, you have decreased insulin sensitivity, which then leads to problems with blood sugar levels in your system, and that can turn into pre-diabetic conditions. You also have decreased leptin hormone, which makes you more hungry, right? So not sleeping is going to give you a bigger appetite. I know, it's terrible, right? And then also not sleeping gives you even less melatonin. And we know melatonin helps you go to sleep. So I put the merry-go-round in this picture of the slide because around and around and around you go, right? You don't sleep, you have less melatonin, and you keep not sleeping, right? Around and around. And how do we get out of that merry-go-round situation? Yeah. And this is relatively new research. This research, the first study was done by the Alberta Tomorrow's Alberta Tomorrow's Project. It was a retrospective study, which means they looked at charts of 45,000 patients, right? And what they found is that 9 hours or more sleep per night was associated with increased prevalence of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and hematologic cancer. So it's not just not getting enough sleep, sometimes it's getting too much sleep. We have both ends of the spectrum, right? We have a little bit of a tightrope wire to walk with sleep. And then also later sleep timing midpoint, like at what point were you at the midpoint of your sleep, was also associated with increased prevalence of breast cancer and combined cancer, right? So that has to do probably more with the disruption of the circadian rhythm. So we need to not only think about sleep deficiency, but then sleep duration changes. This is a very sobering slide. I happen to love old cemeteries. I love old tombstones. I happen to love to just walk around them. I think they're beautiful places. I feel very connected to the Lord in those places. But sleep and mortality, if you sleep too much, you have an associated 12% increased risk of dying. And if you sleep too little, you have a 30% greater risk of dying. Like, these were some sobering statistics for something that most people don't really think about, right? Oh, I didn't sleep last night. Oh, I didn't sleep the night before. I'll just take some melatonin. I'll just drink some more coffee in the morning. I'll do whatever. Do you have something to say, audience member?
Everybody dies, so I mean, whether you sleep too much or too little, I mean,
Valid point.
What do you got to do?
Yes, everybody is headed to the mortality, but they've done these longitudinal studies where they've looked and there's a higher risk. I didn't do the studies. I'm just
Do
reporting.
you want to be in a race to die, or are you willing to just,
You want to hit that happy medium.
All right, so all this right now, you're probably feeling a little heavy. The room's getting a little heavy, getting a little antsy in the back of the room. There is good news about sleep regularity, which is like, if you have a regular, consistent timing of when you go to sleep and when you wake up every day, which, Rachel's like, no, I don't. You have a decreased risk of dying from a cardiac problem or a decreased risk of cancer mortality, or also a decreased risk of all kinds of mortality. So we really need to start to think about what are our sleep schedules. Just like when you're a little kid, right? When you're a little kid and you're raising children, you're like, no, you go to bed at 7 o'clock. No, you get up at 6 o'clock. The other thing that I did want to speak briefly about is sleepy driving, right? So this is a pretty big problem, not only in our country, but in other countries. And so we know these reports are from the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, that sleepy drivers have decreased reaction time. We all know the Northway is a little bit of a treacherous place, so you want to have as much reaction time as you possibly can. They also have decreased sustained attention, which we know that driving requires a lot of cognitive function, cognitive attention. They have diminished awareness of hazard, so maybe you would rate something not as hazardous as it is when you're sleep deprived and driving. And this was the most disturbing piece of research that I found about this, but they experience micro sleep events, right? So they don't even know they're sleeping.
Right.
It's not like they fall asleep. These micro sleep events are short involuntary moments of inattention. And they've determined that during a micro sleep event, your car going on a highway could travel an entire football field of distance while you're micro sleeping.
That's how fast I'm driving.
Which really should be disconcerting all of us. In the CDC reports that 1 in 25 individuals drive while sleep impaired, and there's about 300,000 drowsy MVAs per year in the US, and a lot of those result in death and mortality. So if you're not sleeping, perhaps you should be driving. So we have all those physical things that have to do with sleep, and then we do have to spend a little time talking about sleep deficiency and how it affects our mental health and our mental well-being. So
Should we ask questions about the physical things before we move on to
we
the
can
mental
also
things?
talk about physical things right now, sure. I
So-
like to take a break.
So blue light glasses,
Yeah, they're recommended by my eye doctor. They're super expensive though.
yeah, I mean, they have, okay, so, cause they have inexpensive ones. Are those like a sham?
Cheap face.
Yeah, I don't know, but you know what I would recommend? So the thing that I know as I get older, what's not my area of expertise, it's not my area of expertise,
Right.
but I know where to go. So the National Sleep Foundation has a great website where they kind of endorse companies and products.
Okay,
And that's where I would start.
the
with that.
National Sleep Foundation.
NSF, yep. That would be my answer to that. I don't know, when I got my glasses, they were ridiculously expensive, and then she's like, oh, do you want me to add another $200 for that? And I was like, oh. So I'd rather just not have my computer on at night, but I do confess I watch TV right before bed.
Cause I would think like. It would be counterproductive, yeah, you're not getting the blue light, but you're also not sleeping because you're using the blue lights. To continue doing the thing that's keeping you from sleeping.
Correct. Or going to bed, right? I
Right.
mean, how many times I'm just gonna check this one thing on my computer and then
Yeah.
2 hours later, right? Where does the time go? You're still sitting in that same space.
In your research, did they give a time like 3 hours before your bedtime? Or 2 hours, or is there a,
Yeah, I'm gonna go back, at the beginning, there was a note on my slide that I didn't talk about, and it was like 10, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find that note, and there's another one at the end,
But
but
also skipped by the heart, the cardiovascular.
because I was
side.
late. Dr.
Okay.
Ramsey, he was already talking about it, and then I was like, oh, there's probably a slide for that.
let's see if I can
Went
find
real
it,
quick.
but
I mean, it was there, but I was like wondering like.
yeah, zero would be like, don't hit your snooze alarm. But let me find it, because I wrote it down, there's several, there's 2 different ones.
I can go back to it too.
Yeah, I'll find it at the end or whatever, but yeah, there is a definite, like, no caffeine 10 hours before you go to bed. Well, holy, you know what? I get up, I start drinking caffeine at like 6 in the morning, and I've learned I have to stop my caffeine at 2. I usually go to bed around 9:30 or 10, so I'm thinking, if I go backwards 10 hours, like, I won't have any coffee in the morning, right? So that's the 10-party rule.
Oh, they said 10.
10 hours
Oh, I
before
tried
bed.
to cut
Yeah.
myself off at now.
No caffeine, 10 hours.
10 hours. And
Yeah,
then the
one after
3,
dinner.
2, I think 3 is no food, no alcohol. I think 2 is no work. And 1 is like no computer, no task, TV, nothing.
An hour before.
Yeah,
It's no
yeah.
life.
And then, yeah. And my audience is saying no life. I'm not sure what my life would be without caffeine, but yeah. So,
So how many of those rules do you adhere to?
and this is why this talk is maybe just for me tonight.
Oh my.
Because I'm shocked at some of this stuff. I don't sleep well. I'm gonna just throw it out there. I haven't slept well in forever. And part of it is because I think I'm always busy and I don't know, but the other part of it, when I look at these slides, I'm like, oh, too much caffeine, too late in the day. Oh, too much TV before bed. Oh, too much eating dinner late before you go to bed, right? Too much of everything. We're all human, we can all learn at this point. So this slide, I have these 2 arrows because a lot of these relationships are bidirectional, which means if you have a mental health condition or a mental health disorder, anxiety, depression, you would be more prone to not sleeping. But also, if you're prone to not sleeping, you're more prone to having mental health issues, right? So they go back and forth, these things together. So the first one is the National Alliance on Mental Health. Poor sleepers appear more likely to develop anxiety and depression than good sleepers. And there's, again, another pretty big pandemic in this country of mental health, depression, as well as anxiety. Another research article by Peng in 2024 said the risk of developing insomnia or other sleep disorders increases with diagnosis of a pre-existing anxiety disorder. So like, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Or they go back and forth. Again, we're on that same merry-go-round of the role of mental health and sleeping are kind of bidirectional. And then this other article in 2021, not 21, 201, 21, 89% of patients diagnosed with depression have poor sleep quality. So we know that they go hand in hand, and we know we really need to do something to help. So this was all the kind of background information when I started looking at sleep. Every year, my students and I do a research project. And so this year's research project, we decided to look at sleep in college student health in particular. We tried to really scrutinize individual articles, not just big websites like the National Sleep Foundation, but what's the new research that's being produced about college students. And there's not that much research in the Gen Pop being produced. So it was nice to find a little bit of a niche because we're really concerned about our college students right now. Rachel will tell you that from her own experience. So we found like 13 articles. We did a big systematic review, and the top negative influence on college student sleep and health was mobile phone dependency, nighttime phone use. So MPD, mobile phone dependency, was excessive use of a mobile phone that led to negative consequences of addiction, right? And so mobile phone dependency, they had questionnaires that determined like what that was, but nighttime phone use was another one. High screen time use, and this is what's a little disturbing. In this particular study, more than 2 hours per day. Internet addiction, 4 or more hours per day. Like, what college student, or most people who are, sedentary, are sitting at a computer how many hours a day? So we're talking about like big impairments in sleep related to, again, internet technology, phone technology. Technology is not necessarily, like, we love it, and it's very helpful, but we need to probably start to put it down sometimes to protect our health.
Is this specifically the little blue square with 2 hours of high screen time use?
That's what they called it in that study.
Is that mobile?
It was any kind of screen. So it
Any
could've been
kind of
phone.
screen?
Yep.
I gotta tell my boss, I gotta get off that screen.
I'm
right?
I'm already not even here then, because.
Exactly, right, and here we all are, thank you to those in virtual land. It's getting late at night, maybe we should turn it off because of the blue light, but anyway.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sedentary behavior, was a definite influencer, so sedentary behavior, was the college students reported they spent 76% of their time, about 10 hours a day in sedentary behavior. So that was the cutoff for that. And most of us, again, are pretty sedentary for 10 hours a day and a higher BMI or less physical activity participation. And then we had what was expected: depression, anxiety, psychological stress. But we also had this thing called fear of missing out, which I was not familiar with that term.
FOMO.
Yeah. Fear of missing out from the Cleveland Clinic is the feeling or perception that other people are having fun, experiencing new things, or living a life better than you. Right, so college students who were worried that they were missing out had poor sleep quality. Bedtime prep, yeah.
Doing the greatest thing.
Right, it's all that, like, who's posting what, and, you know, everybody posts happy things, right? So it's kind of that generation, it's impacting them, it's impacting their sleep, unfortunately. Bedtime procrastination behavior, so this is how many ways you can postpone actually going to bed, just like it sounds. And then most interestingly, and I love this because here we are in a church, which is like that third place, it's the community. Most interestingly, students who had poor relationships with peers, family, or friends were less likely to get good sleep. Right, so that establishing connections, establishing human connections with others became really important for college student health. And I'm sure there'll be other studies later in life that are, you know, related to more adult or even geriatric populations and sleep. Some other like incidental findings in our study this year was that when we looked at college athletes, that sleep deprivation decreased their physical stamina for athletic events and increased their cardiovascular strain after exercise. So that's not a good thing. And sleep deprivation increased pain sensitivity in college athletes. So we're checking musculoskeletal pain after a workout, delayed onset muscle soreness. They were a lot more uncomfortable when we deprived them from sleep. And I look at that from a physical therapist lens of, it does seem that people are in more pain. People are in more pain, and, you know, we try and connect mental health status with pain perception, but then also just certain patients have escalated pain levels. We call it nociceptive pain. Very difficult to get rid of, and they're going, you know, from physician to physical therapist to chiropractor to, they're going around in a circle, and we can't quite get them out of pain. And maybe instead of just looking at their increased pain sensitivity, we should really be looking at their sleep quality and what they're doing to have a good night's sleep. 1 night of sleep deprivation significantly decreased the reaction time, and that goes along with the driving. So they had coordination activities for these athletes to do, and the ones that didn't sleep 1 night had some problems. So probably right now you're like, okay, sleep deprivation, sleep time. Most of the studies used the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index, which you can get a max score of 21. That's a perfect score for being a good sleeper. And these were all the components in that questionnaire. And so they look at sleep quality, how many times you're waking up, sleep duration, how long you're sleeping, sleep latency is how long it takes you to fall asleep. My husband could fall asleep in 5 seconds. You know, I'm a like, am I gonna fall asleep? I'm not gonna fall asleep. Should I lay here? Should I get up? What's happening? You know, I'm that kind of fall asleep person. Daytime dysfunction due to sleepiness, habitual sleep efficiency, sleep disturbances, and whether or not patients were, or people who took these studies or participated were using sleep medication. So here's a few, just so you know for yourself, these are some of the questions that would show up on the Pittsburgh Sleep Questionnaire. So one is, during the past month, when have you usually gone to bed at night? So something to think about. During the past month, how long in minutes has it usually taken for you to fall asleep? And these all have point scores attached to them. During the past month, when have you usually gotten up in the morning? And so you can see these are hinting at that schedule importance. And during the past month, how many hours of actual sleep did you get a night? Which might be different than the time that you spend in bed. If you look on the other side, the questions on the other side are, you can answer never in the past month, less than once a week, 1 to 2 times a week, 3 or more times per week. So we're looking at how often have you had trouble sleeping because you can't get to sleep within 30 minutes? Because you wake up in the middle of the night or early in the morning because you have to get up to go to the bathroom because you can't be comfortable with your breath. You have to cough or your snoring wakes you up, you feel cold, you feel hot, you have bad dreams, you have pain. So all these things are what they're looking at and something that you should be thinking about. This questionnaire is available online, PSQI, you can take it yourself, you can get your own little score. And then you can start to try and figure out, what are we gonna do to change that score? Because what we're gonna do is sleep hygiene. And so it seems kind of weird, kind of like clean up your house, let's clean up your sleep. Like we all have some sleep hygiene work to do. So one, comfortable and quiet, right? And that's not really equitable for everybody in this country, depending on where you live, right? Depending on the outside noise level, urban setting, whatever. Sometimes you don't have the ability to get a nice quiet sleeping space. Participate in daily physical activity. That's my favorite because I'm a physical therapist. So physical activity every day is gonna help you sleep. I sleep the best if I'm on a ski vacation. I ski all day. I'm outside all day, I ski all day, physically exhausted, don't have any mental stress. And I just go to bed and I sleep very, very well. Limit your sedentary behavior, decrease your technology use. Please, please, please unplug everything. I don't even like really phones in the bedroom because it's not just the blue light, but it's also EMF waves and other things that we're not quite sure about with technology. So try not to, take your phone to bed with you and participate in some mindfulness calming activities before bedtime. And that happens to be another area of my expertise and research. So whatever works for you. So if it's meditation, or if it's yoga, or if it's lavender, lotion or oil, or taking a bath, or what it's prayer, whatever it is for you that is mindful and calming, those are good ways to get better night's sleep. So the take home from all this is that sleep is more important now than ever, right? So we now know, we have evidence that sleep is more important, and it's really important because it's going to give you optimal biopsychosocial health. It affects everything, your body, your mind, and your spirit. And that many preventable health conditions are linked to the inability to maintain adequate sleep patterns. So that's a problem that we all need to worry about. And that 9 out of 10 adults, 88%, this is a National Sleep Foundation statistic, who get good sleep, report they're flourishing, right? So they're out there and they're living their best lives, right? They're doing great. While less than half, 47% of those with poor sleep satisfaction experience the same level of well-being. And wouldn't we want everybody here to flourish? Wouldn't we want everybody that we know to flourish and feel better and enjoy, the grace of the gift of life? Also from the National Sleep Foundation, consequences of poor sleep. They're 4 times more likely not to be happy. They're 2.5 times more likely not to be productive at work. That's a problem. 3 times more likely not to achieve their goals. 2 times more likely not to be productive at home. So not just work productivity, but home productivity. If you're not sleeping, who has the energy to clean your house or cook a meal or go out and do something with your spouse? And they're 2 times more likely not to have a fulfilling social life. So then they become more and more isolated, and not having a fulfilling social life goes hand in hand with more sedentary behavior, right? If you're socially isolated, you're not going out, you're not moving around out in the environment, out in the world. So those are all some pretty significant concerns. So what should you do to get better sleep? There's another rule on the bottom of this slide, which says, it's got the 3, stop drinking alcohol before you go to sleep, stop eating and drinking. This says, no, it said 3 hours for alcohol, 2 hours for eating food. The other one was 3 for both. And then bottom of my slide, I'm losing my notes. My students laugh at me when I have technology problems. 1 hour before you go to sleep. This was not 1 hour before you sleep, stop your technology. This said 1 hour before you go to sleep, stop drinking fluids, right? So that you don't wake up and have to go to the bathroom. But use bedtime reminders and wake up alarms to get a regular sleep schedule going, right? So you have to start to think about this as a homework assignment, right? Maybe tonight, I'm gonna like go to bed, or this week, I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock every night, or I'm gonna be in bed at 10 o'clock every night. Now, of course, that doesn't work if at 9:55, you just finished dinner and you've been on the computer doing work for 6 hours, but try to start to set a sleep schedule and try and start a normal wake up window that you're gonna try and stick to. Keep 1 to 2 hours of extra sleep time on non-working holidays, right? So we do know the National Sleep Foundation says if you miss sleep, you can make up sleep. But when you start to do too much sleep on weekends or holidays and keep dysregulating your schedule, then it's gonna be a perpetuating problem, sleep insufficiency. 60 to 67 degrees, that's a little chilly for you, Rachel.
Very much so. That's not happening.
Helps promote sleep, they've done some studies on that. Avoid heavy meals, nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol, that's a 3-2-1. So they have, like, there are all kinds of numbers about things not to do, but spend time in bright natural light during the day, and this kind of goes back to, our students did another great presentation about the benefits of nature exposure, right? So that light exposure is really great for circadian rhythm, normal circadian rhythm. Organize and maintain a sleep wind down routine that works for you. So nothing works for everybody. There's different things that work for different people. And if you do find that something happened that you missed an entire night's sleep, then by all means, try and put that money back in the bank. Try and put another sleep deposit in the bank to catch up. I think where we all run into trouble is that we don't sleep, and we just keep not sleeping. We get shorter and shorter and shorter. We try and do more, and we don't ever like stop and catch up and rest.
Before you go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Have you read anything about vitamins? Or, having enough vitamins and sleep?
I have not, but I will look into it. I certainly didn't see it in college students, because not many college students take vitamins. Again, I probably looked at I looked at the NSFF website right before I came here, and I don't think I saw anything. There was a lot on the melatonin supplements, there was a lot on that, but I don't think so much on vitamins, but I'm a proponent of, first of all, healthy eating. I think there is a lot of research on the NSF site about healthy diet being good for sleep promotion. If you have a healthy diet, then there's less need for supplements, right? But I don't exactly know the answer to that.
Didn't you say something about inflammatory too?
Yes, right. So there are certain diets that are better for inflammation. So Mediterranean diet has less inflammatory response. So yeah. So fish, healthy oils, fatty fish, like healthy omega-3 fish that has omega-3 oil in it. Green tea is supposed to be great for anti-inflammatory, antioxidant properties. So there are, and all that stuff is on the NSF website. So I would definitely, not at nighttime, but maybe in the morning one day, spend a little time perusing that website and seeing what they have. So these are some additional resources. What's great on the website, I said they have these partners, and they have Loop earplugs and Oslo sleep buds. So Oslo sleep buds are a small company, very expensive, $200-300. Loop earplugs are a bigger company, and you can get like sound noise canceling earphones for sleep or for quiet for $25 or $50. So, but they have a lot of other resources besides that manufacturer. So someplace to look. This is actually the National Sleep Foundation's trademark logo, which is be your best slept self, right? So we all should think about this circle of things that all help you get better sleep and become healthier, happier people, which is exposure to natural light, doing some exercise, making sure that your meals are healthy and that your meal times are not close to bedtime, avoiding all those things like nicotine, alcohol, technology, getting into a good wind down and setting yourself up in a nice little peaceful spot to get the sleep that your body deserves. So thank you very much for your time. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or not answer them. Usually when I have my students, I make them try and answer them before I jump in and save them, but there's nobody to save me tonight. So maybe I thought what would be nice is to talk about some of the barriers that you have to good sleep, right? So see if we could try and like work through whatever barriers that you might have, and maybe you don't even know that they're barriers, but maybe they are barriers.
I think definitely for me, it's my list of to-dos and
Undones,
deadlines.
I call it my list of undones.
Yes, and so when the year, not when the year began, but close to the year ending and beginning, I was like, okay. Oh, my planner's not here. It's the same color as my phone. That's why I thought it was my planner. I'm like, have the new planner, putting in, gonna get to bed by 9:30 because I wanna wake up before 5 to get to this class, this exercise class at 5:30. Cause I'm like, where can I fit this in? All these things need to fit in. And if I start
Earlier
later,
and stay later, you'll
Right,
get more
but-
time.
so it's like I have to wake up at this ridiculously early time if I'm trying to get sleep, and I was not even trying to do enough sleep. I was trying to get to 6 or 7 hours. And I was like, that's an improvement for what's happening, right?
Mhm.
And a few weeks ago, I was like, something has gone awry. I am waking up early. I am not going to bed early. And it's been a rough road, so for me, it's keeping that schedule and just really trusting that all the other benefits that you listed here in this presentation. It'll make the rest of the stuff possible, and it'll be harder to do if I don't have enough sleep, so it's just reminding myself of that.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I'm the same person, right? So like, how can I do, I have all these gifts and all these things and I want to help and I have all these things, but sometimes less is more. And again, it's about self-care. Self-care is not selfish. And when you look at memory and like working memory and cognition, those are the things you need to get those high level things done, right? And if you're sleep deprived, you're operating like in a car that needs premium gas with like whatever, French fry
Water.
oil. I don't know, right? It's the same, so those things take longer, right? Or, right, or you go to the gym, sometimes I don't know if you're a fan, like, I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna go work out. And when I'm super tired or haven't gotten a lot of sleep, I'm like, I don't do much, right? As opposed to if I had a good night's sleep, I would go half hour, get my exercise in and go off on my merry way and, right? So again, it's just starting to shift a little bit at a time. I mean, these are hard habits to change.
Yeah.
And these are parts of our life that the technology piece of our life is around and is gonna be around. Or the sedentary work part of our life is something that's just, a job requirement. So these are hard things to change. There are some great things like the Calm app for like meditation. It's so funny, on the NSF website, they also have some other technology about sleep tracking, and I'm like, isn't that ironic? You want us not to have any blue light, but you want us to use all these like apps and technology to track our sleeping, and even, watches track how you sleep. I don't even want my watch anywhere near me at night because it dings on, this light. I don't know, the dog walks in the room, my watch dings in the night, but yeah, it's a process for all of us, but I think like this presentation and the work that the NSF is doing is gonna bring more awareness. And I think in this country, we've been more reactive with medicine, take a pill, have a surgery, right? And now the pendulum is swinging back into more integrated, natural, homeopathic, preventative care, right? And this is an important piece of that, and doesn't really cost anything. It's a great piece because it's not expensive. A lot of the other pieces that I recommend for people, take a yoga class or go get a massage or go have somebody do Reiki or whatever. I do reflexology. They cost money. They cost a lot of money. Like this is a piece that's relatively inexpensive to implement. It's just a question of trying to do it a little bit at a time. And of course, when we all set these lofty goals, I set lofty goals and then I'm like, oh, didn't make it, and then I quit, right? And then it'll take me another like month to go back and revisit and, oh, why did I fail? Because it was an impossible goal. I have these conversations with my students. Because, a little bit at a time is the way you get up the mountain. You're not gonna just like all of a sudden jump, teleport yourself to the top of the mountain. And so when I look at the number of bad habits I have related to sleep, maybe this week I'll just work on the one, right? I'll eat dinner at 7 o'clock instead of at 8:30 at night, although not tonight,
Not
because I don't have dinner yet. But yeah, so it's a process. Do you have anything that you think you could change or fix or?
Yeah, definitely, because I'll set it on my phone, get to sleep and then I'll note it, but I still got stuff to get done. And then, just keep doing what I need to get
It's a
done.
cute idea.
Yeah. In a perfect world, yes, one of those apps that, will help you to track your, sleep time.
Yeah.
Cause when you have to get, up in the morning to get, try to run the bus and, need to work and. But, that, and I was, wondering too, if there was any correlation with, because I have all those things, rheumatoid arthritis, I take, medications for, cardiovascular things, struggle with my weight, so with these sedentary lifestyles that going on.
Right.
But if there's, what we could do, like, once we've gotten into that spot, and again, you go to see medical professionals and they want to push, the next best pill. But, okay, well, you could take this pill for your rheumatoid arthritis, but, you have to go to the eye doctor now because that's gonna cause
the
your
side
vision
effects.
to be compromised and, which is already as you age, your vision has, she says, I'll see the reds less more, like that's what I'll lose first, I guess, like your reds won't look, brilliantly red. So then it's like, do I take that pill to help like the pain in the joints?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
It's hard, no, it's hard decision, it's hard decision, but then if you look at this presentation, like maybe you'd have less pain in the joints, because if you're not sleeping, you might have more pain,
Mhm.
perception of pain, or you might have escalated nociceptive pain receptors in your brain, right? So
Yeah.
it's certainly worth a try. I always say like homeopathic or the natural way is a great way to try. I bridge both worlds, right? So I'm a physical therapist and I believe in the science. I love physical activity, physical exercise, specific targeted interventions to help patients. But then on the other hand, I also like to take a step back and look at the whole person, right? Mind, body, spirit, right? So how are we doing in all those areas? Interestingly enough, the where the pineal gland is where the SCN exists in the brain, and that's also known as the third eye. Like, so deep in the center part of the brain, like where intuition and spirituality is this area that's helping you sleep. Well, isn't that interesting, right? So now, medicine, science, and then also more integrative concepts. Old world medicine concepts are becoming important, and we've gotten to this place like collectively as a society. It's not just you, it's everybody's got the same struggles, right? With technology and with sedentary behavior and with the stresses of the modern day world. We're a little bit disconnected from our roots of peaceful time spent in nature or peaceful time spent in community, right? The pandemic certainly isolated a lot of people, escalated stress levels, did a number on physical ability level and physical health of patients and mental health of patients, right? So we're still kind of clawing our way back out of that. I don't think anybody slept during the pandemic. How could anybody sleep? My husband, I always tease, he can sleep, like a bomb can go off and he'd be like sound asleep and sleeping. But Sleep and I have had, one of those relationships. It's a definite love-hate relationship. You go out pretty well?
He like,
We're talking about our husbands or like your
Yeah.
husband.
our male counterparts can just like flip a switch and they're
Like, I'm tired.
sleep,
And then,
sleep, and then I'm thinking,
what kind of superpower is that?
my Rolodex or whatever, yeah.
Right. I mean, true story, like on a plane, he sits down in a plane, he puts on his seatbelt, and before the plane is pulled away from the jetway, sound asleep, right? And I'm like, I'm never gonna sleep on a plane, like human beings don't belong that high in the sky. I have to supervise, I have to be with the divine, I have to get to where I'm going, I'm not relaxing and falling asleep.
How does that work out for you?
I'm exhausted when we get wherever we go, that's how it works out.
I have done that, but that's because I was on an hour's worth of sleep. So there was nothing else for me to do but sleep. It was like, like, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh. 10 hours of that. There's snacks all over me, cause You know, it's like, I must have been really tired.
But I mean, I think we all could do better. And even just having a conversation with other people about this, because I don't think, you don't go to your physician and they're like, how's your sleep? I've never been asked, and I've had some major health problems. I've never been asked like, how are you sleeping? Nobody cares about that. But I do care and we should care,
Yeah.
right?
So talking about sleep debt.
Yeah.
For those that have to or tend to wake up in the middle of the night, how can you go back to sleep if you wake up in the middle of the night?
Yes, I find that meditation or prayer works pretty well for that, right? So if you are in the habit of a good meditation practice, or breath work practice where you slow your breathing down, that's my best way to do it. Other people will disagree and they'll say, get up out of bed, walk around, do something else. Don't try and lay in bed. And, you know, it has to do, in yoga philosophy, they call it the monkey mind, right? It's the whirlpool of the mind. It's the, like, once you start, I'm awake, I'm thinking about this, and then you start releasing some more cortisol, and then your brain keeps spinning. And so to try and circumvent that response, for some people, it would be get up, walk around, get up, whatever, have a sip of a glass of milk, or, you know, or for some people it would be pray, or some people it would be meditate. And some people it will be just lay there and watch the clock until it's time to get up, right? It's so funny, my Labrador retriever is very attuned to my sleep habits, and so when I start to get restless, she'll come over and lay down, and be like, Mom, you need to sleep.
So some of those principles could still apply if you're having trouble going to sleep in the evening.
Yes.
Instead of just laying there in bed,
Yep.
Getting up, moving a little bit, resetting, and then going back
Mhm.
to attempt to sleep again.
Mhm.
So for those that struggle to go to bed earlier, how can a person get accustomed to getting that earlier bedtime?
Just a little bit at a time. They recommend in really small segments, right? Really small segments, like 10 or 15 minutes, creeping it up, and maybe on like a weekly basis. So you wouldn't, like today, if I go to bed at 9:30 or 10, say tomorrow at bed at 8 o'clock. That's not how it works.
And some people seem to be using white machines or white noise machines a lot. Anything in your research regarding use of those? Because for some, they cannot go to sleep without them, and so it becomes more of a dependence aspect. So what were some of the things that your research pulled up?
Yeah, like the noise canceling headphones or noise canceling earphones that have white noise. Yeah, for some people, it really helps facilitate sleep. I think we worry about the volume of the noise in terms of like challenging hearing and promoting deafness. So we worry about that. I don't really worry about it being addictive. Because I think the benefits outweigh the risk of the addiction. Like, you know, alcohol is addictive, nicotine is addictive, they have really adverse side effects. Having some white noise and letting yourself sleep is more like health promoting for me than I'm worried about the addictive component. Unless, you know, that's the only way that you can fall asleep, and then you find yourself in a situation where you have no white noise and you can't sleep. That's a different story completely.
I listen to the ocean sometimes.
But I hear the loop.
No,
Oh,
they
I
have ones
can't
that, they
pick
have
it.
ones that go for 11
Oh, you
hours.
know the sound of the
I
whole
hear
loop.
that bird.
No,
at that time.
it goes for 11 hours.
Oh,
No
it's
loop,
not a loop?
no loop.
Because, yeah.
You've got it memorized.
Oh, it's killing me. I'm like, there's the bird. It's 1 AM. And then it would loop. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I have a question about naps. I'm
Naps, yeah.
wondering whether they were like a catch-22.
It depends on how long they are. So they've done some research on napping, and NSF has like they actually have some different places that you can click on all their recent research. So like a short nap, they find very invigorating as long as you don't really get into really, really deep dream REM sleep, right? So a short nap has positive health benefits, but when you're taking naps that are so long, they disrupt your circadian rhythm and your normal sleep wake cycle. Like for me, I'm always exhausted, so I love the, you know, Sunday afternoon nap, but then Sunday night when I'm supposed to go to bed at 9:30 because I have to get up to go to Troy and teach all day on Monday, I'm not going to bed at my normal time. So the nap was great earlier in the day, but the nap is really counterproductive for sleep health.
Should we be taking naps? Like, should we be like 15-minute nap? Helps the whole thing.
They've done some interesting, I know more nap research about effective people, like dynamic leaders and effective people. And they've shown that people who nap, type A people who nap, are much more productive and much more successful.
For how
Taking
long?
that short 10-15 minutes.
Really?
My nap for me is like 2 hours.
No.
Drool on the
Just
pillow,
10,
kind of
15
nap. If
minutes.
I ever,
To do
and-
that to get to sleep.
Yeah.
15 minutes.
yeah, 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah, just a short. But you can get that also from breath work during the day, right? That same relaxation, get into the parasympathetic nervous system and get the same.
And
benefits
that
from
like
that.
state.
Nap-like state. Yeah. Not micro sleep, but nap-like sleep. Micro sleep on driving is bad. So, all right, anything else? I missed my students tonight. I'm sure you missed my students tonight too, but they'll be back in the fall. And if you have any topic that you're interested in us presenting, please let me know, because we have plenty of time to like move in a direction that you would find useful.
Awesome.
Rheumatoid arthritis.
Rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah. Like, from a physical therapist perspective of like how to combat, like, cause they tell you it's an autoimmune disease, it's going to progressively, but what we can do to
Proactively, slow
proactively
down or, yeah.
at least
Mhm.
treat or, I know you're not gonna prevent it altogether, but like.
Slow the decline or slow the progression, yeah.
Right.
And who knows, we still, medicine is still evolving, we're still
Yeah.
learning really new and great things in medicine. Not all of it's surgical or pharmacology related, so we're still learning some new and great things. A lot of problems with integrative medicine is that the practitioners weren't scientists. So the people who like gravitated towards yoga or Reiki or reflexology or things like that weren't necessarily scientists or medical practitioners. And so we had not much research, but now NIH has a big complementary alternative medical department that they're doing lots of funding and research to try and look at, because we recognize that the health of this nation is in a bad place. And whatever we've been doing is not working. So something's gotta change.
Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
this presentation. And if you're online, don't keep streaming, Pastor. Are we off? What happened?
Will it be available?
Yeah, they post it usually on
Yep.
YouTube.
Oh, good. So
Yeah,
you
can go back.
Just see
Yep.
some of the things maybe that we.
Share it with a friend.
I'm trying to share my screen, but it's not sharing, it's not going. Well, I was trying to share the Tuesday with the doctor screen. So
It's come back up.
Oh,
There it is.
there it is, there it is. And I don't know if we're still live, but if we're still live, if you are interested in seeing some of the past presentations by the SAGE students, and technically it's like the SAGE students and Dr. Katrine is there in the background, helping them to be their best selves, right? So you can see here, we have a lot of our past events, and maybe you can't see it there, but joyoftroy.org/doctor. We've had several medical professionals and also we even had a lawyer who specialized in, who gave presentations on preparing for death, which causes stress. So it ends up impacting your mental health. So, but you can see we have a long list of topics that we've been doing. I don't know if it's since 2020, but this is just taking a long time to load. But we've been doing it for quite some time. So topics that have to do with children, women, perimenopause, obesity, intermittent fasting, asthma, smoke cessation, all the things. We're going to be here again in April, and we don't know what the topic is yet, so just stay tuned, visit our website, and all the information will be posted there. See you in April. You can come in person also, it's more fun that way.
All right, be well.